GB News, where we keep clear skies tonight. Expect it to turn a little frosty with some fog patches. There will be some rain arriving tomorrow across the northwest, but a fine day across much of the south thanks to this area of high pressure. Changes are on the way as we go into the weekend. But for Friday, that high pressure keeping things largely dry. As I said, through the night where we've got some clear skies across the south, and we could see a touch of frost in rural spots, and we could also see some fog patches forming parts of northeast Scotland, also turning a little chilly. Elsewhere, generally a bit too much cloud, providing some drizzle in parts of western Scotland and the odd spot of drizzle across the south of England this evening, but that generally clearing away. Where we keep the cloud, temperatures could hold up in double figures, but where we've got the clear skies, we could certainly in rural spots across the south see some pockets of frost, and it's likely to be some fog patches around as well, which will linger through the morning rush hour. So just something to be aware of. Further north, not so foggy, but quite grey for Northern Ireland, much of southern Scotland, a bit of rain and drizzle here and there, some of that in western Scotland too. But to the east, generally here, a fine bright start. Any fog patches across eastern Scotland should clear pretty sharply. As we go through the day, we're not going to see huge changes. The fog will take a while to clear, but much of the South Midlands, South Wales, southern England, dry, fine, sunny spells. Generally cloudier further north, a bit of drizzle here and there, and then we'll see some wetter weather coming into the far northwest later. Temperature-wise, double digits, a touch cooler than today in the south, but with more sunshine. Light winds. It should feel quite pleasant. We'll see a spell of wet and windy weather swing south then on Friday night, bringing some outbreaks of rain over northern England into Wales and the Midlands later on Saturday. To the north of that, turning blustery with some showers. Yes, that is a bit of snow in the hills there. Much of the south still largely dry and mild at this stage on Saturday, but notice further north temperatures struggling to get into double figures.
A nice bright morning will generate a lovely warm day, right through to the evening. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good evening, I'm Johnny Ratner. On the M1 in West Yorkshire, the two inside lanes are closed northbound from junction 43 to 44, just off the M621 south of Leeds. Debris all over the motorway. Highway officers are on scene, I can see on camera. In Greater Manchester at Audenshaw Road's blocked by collision of the Stockport Road. And on the M4 in Berkshire, two lanes have been closed westbound. Junction 11 to 12 just west of Reading, there's been an accident involving at least two lorries. And then further west on the M4, just south of Swindon, the lane is closed on the westbound exit at junction 15 for emergency bridge repairs, causing long queues back onto the A419. And staying in Wiltshire, just west of Salisbury, the A36, the Salisbury Road closed southbound off the A30 at Wilton following an accident in spillage. On the M5 in Devon, one lane's closed southbound at junction 30 near Exeter following an accident. And that's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
There's only 2 weeks remaining to win Christmas on us this year. First, we'll give you £20,025 in tax-free cash. Then we'll give you £5,000 to spend on all of your Christmas presents, with a further £500 in vouchers to spend at your favourite supermarket. Finally, a GB News Christmas goodie bag. You'll get it all in time for the big day. For another chance to win, call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2, or post your name and number to GB09 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 22nd of November. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Why go out on a Friday night when Friday night comes straight to your home?
Talking about?
Join me and my A-team of top pundits. Chemistry tonight is electric. As we tackle the big stories of the day with wit, insight and fearless energy.
Man of the people.
It's all vibe.
Just a filing cabinet on wheels with a tie on.
So, order in Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, every Friday at 8, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here
We do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good evening. Tonight, immigration stats from the OECD saying we are taking more legal migrants than any other country on the planet. Is it doing us any good? Let's talk Trump appointments and let's talk about Doge. Don't worry, if you don't know about it, I'll explain the whole thing in a few minutes' time. We must debate the assisted dying bill, which comes to Parliament on November the 19th, probably the most significant private member's bill for decades to come before members of Parliament. And guess what? Civil servants say they want to work a 4-day week because that would give them a very happy life. Yes, not so happy for the taxpayers perhaps, but there we are, we'll debate it all. First, let's get the news with Sophie Reaper.
Thank you, Nigel. The time is 7 o'clock and these are your latest headlines. Law enforcement agencies in the UK, Belgium and the Netherlands have arrested a major supplier of small boats and engines to criminal people smugglers. The suspect, a 44-year-old Turkish national, was arrested after arriving at Amsterdam airport. Dutch authorities plan to extradite the man to Belgium to face charges as part of an organised criminal operation. The National Crime Agency says that the suspect has been a top target of investigations for years. Fewer pharmacies could be open in the evenings and at weekends from the new year. That's after pharmacy owners voted in favour of collective action for the first time in their history. Some could also withdraw from providing emergency contraception and stop smoking services. More than 3,000 independent community pharmacies in England, Wales and Northern Ireland took part in the ballot, with 97% of those who voted saying they would serve notice on opening hours above the minimum requirement by their contract. Earlier, the chief executive of Peak Pharmacy told GB News this action is a cry for help.
And the General Health Service is in a sorry state now, unfortunately. Community pharmacy has suffered under the imposition of a 10-year fixed funding deal, effectively, which has really meant that it's now straining in every direction to continue to uphold a service that frankly, is starting to deteriorate.
Council tax rises will help ensure local authorities are funded next year, a minister said, as he rejected Tory claims of a £2.4 billion black hole. Council tax bills in England are expected to increase by up to 5% next April, with families therefore facing a £100 rise. Communities Minister Matthew Pennycook said the government expects an additional £1.8 billion to be raised through council tax next year. And a 62-gun salute has taken place at the Tower of London this lunchtime in order to honour King Charles' 76th birthday. Today is the monarch's actual birthday, following the official celebration marked by trooping the colour in June. Earlier this morning, the royal family posted a new image of the King on X, and the Prince and Princess of Wales wished the King a happy birthday with this lovely image on Instagram. And despite it being his birthday, the King is still carrying out his official duties. He's opened 2 coronation food hubs designed to bridge the gap between food need and food waste in the UK. For now, those are your GB News latest headlines. I'm Sophie Reaper, and now it's back to Nigel.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Good evening. A big thank you to you from the very, very start for watching us, for listening to us, whether it's live or on catch-up. And we're being noticed. Our influence is being noticed. I had Alison Pearson on the show last night talking about Plod, knocking on her door last Sunday morning for something she said on X a year ago. And Elon Musk picked this all up and he posted last night and saying that, what we'd done is the show had beaten Sky and the BBC ratings combined. And he's making the point, Elon, that basically people have had enough of old-style mainstream media. So a big thank you to Elon Musk as well. Now, some figures out today from the OECD suggest that the United Kingdom saw a 53% surge in migration in 2023, the highest among wealthy nations. Now, America's number was bigger at 1.2 million, but our numbers are pretty much off the charts. And pro rata, our numbers are the biggest in the world. 746,900 people came for permanent type settlement in the United Kingdom last year. Well, I'm joined in the studio by Mike Jones, Executive Director of Migration Watch. I guess these figures are no surprise to you at all.
No, not at all. They're shocking, but not surprising. And the numbers don't lie, and the numbers are devastating. I mean, according to the OECD, we saw the largest percentage increase last year among permanent migrants amongst the rich countries, about 53%. The only country that came close to this was South Korea, with Australia in a distant third. And as you said, in terms of raw numbers, we were second only to the United States.
Which is 6 times bigger than we are.
Precisely. I mean, if you zoom out, you go back to 2019 to 2023, there was about a 110% increase. Only a very small number of countries outdid us there. I think it was Poland, Lithuania and New Zealand. So the figures are absolutely staggering.
They are. I don't know what you think at home, folks, but, is this ever going to end? Farage at GBNews.com. Give me your views. Is this ever going to end? Now, Mike, the point is that, and for years, for 20 plus years, I've talked about this, worried that the population increase would just have an impact on services, etc. But I was told by real experts like Nick Robinson of the Today programme that what mattered was it was good for the economy, that mass migration was good for the economy, and so we just have to put up with the M6 being a bit busier on a Friday night. But there's evidence now coming through that actually it's not particularly good, is it?
No, I mean, when people promote the economic benefits of immigration, they confuse elite immigration and mass immigration and GDP and GDP per capita. So if you increase the size of your population, obviously the economic pie is getting bigger, but GDP per person doesn't necessarily increase. In fact, mass migration can actually damage the economy. The last major study that was done on this by Oxford Economics, they found that it was a huge burden to the taxpayer in the financial year of 2016. But that was pre-Brexit, and non-European migrants were the biggest burden, according to that study. But since Brexit and the points-based system was introduced, we've seen a huge surge in legal and illegal migrants from outside of the EU. So clearly, the idea that it greases the wheels of the economy is a fallacy.
Also worth noting that the OECD do make the point that a very large number of those that came were dependents of those who had work visas, and that means providing education, health, whatever else it may be. Now, the numbers are going to be down this year, is that right?
Oh, I think so. Anywhere between 100 to 150,000 in terms of net migration. That's the sort of ballpark figure. Obviously, that's a result of Tory party reforms. James Cleverly banned most postgraduate dependents and social care dependents. He tweaked about with the salary thresholds. But at the end of the day, neither the Tory or Labour parties believe in a cap on visas. In fact, the Tory party got rid of Theresa May's cap on non-European migrants. And ultimately, without a cap, there's no control. And that's the only realistic way of bringing numbers down.
Well, I think that's very interesting because we do have with us in the studio Tom Pursglove, former Conservative Member of Parliament and Minister in the Immigration Department. I'm also joined by Susie Stride, former Labour Party advisor and activist. So, Tom Pursglove, I mean, these figures are from the last year of your government. They're awful.
Well, I thought the numbers were too high, and that's why we got on and did something about it. And James Cleverly as Home Secretary and me as the legal migration minister in more recent times took steps to address this. And as has been touched on, the numbers will be down very considerably this year. There was quite senior commentary around the fact that actually, even without those measures, you would see the numbers drop organically. But we thought it was the right thing to do to really bring those numbers down, pulling the levers that you and I campaigned for in that referendum.
No, I know.
We said we wanted to decide what our fate should be when it comes to immigration. That's precisely why we introduced the points-based system, responding to the mandate from the referendum.
Yeah, but you set the bar too low. You set the bar too low. I mean, far from cutting immigration numbers, they went to record levels.
Well, before my time as the legal migration...
I'm not saying it's all your fault, you know.
We were very unhappy
some of it is, obviously. But
as I say, I was not happy with the position that we're in. But equally, you do have to recognise, I think, in the post-pandemic world, that there was a need for social care workers, that we have had to respond to various conflicts. I think I struggle to find people who would disagree with us responding to the Afghanistan crisis, the Ukrainian crisis, Hong Kong BNO situation, as well as Syria, any differently. That accounts for a large part for those numbers. But this does need to be in a much more sustainable place, and the government should see through that package that we announced.
What was interesting was Kemi Badenoch, of course, was campaigning openly for students to bring dependents with them. That was her campaign. She was proud of it. That's one of the loopholes that has been closed.
I don't think those numbers were ever what was envisaged when that policy was announced.
Wasn't it obvious?
Well, let's look at, for example, on the social care side, we banned dependents from being able to come with social care workers. And when you looked at the numbers, for 100,000 social care workers, you had 120,000 dependents. They were the figures that I was presented with in December last year when I took on the role as the Home Office Legal Migration Minister. That was just an unacceptable situation, which was why the change was right.
Which is why we're getting poorer. I mean, this explains why, Susie, you know, as I said, this long-term argument that it's good for us economically. Well, GDP may go up because there are more of us, so there's a bigger cake. But actually, our measure of wealth, our GDP per capita, has fallen for 6 of the last 8 quarters, coinciding with record numbers. And I just wonder, you know, Mike made the point that Labour, you know, and the Conservatives are really not setting numbers or levels for visas. Do you think Keir Starmer's government takes immigration seriously?
I think they do, because I think, look, I mean, you can't be someone that understands politics and, you know, goes out and canvasses and think that immigration is not one of the biggest issues in this country. It just is. And whatever you may think about it, and I'm very big on this, and, you know, we're not talking about the American election tonight, but ultimately the Democrats didn't listen to the people.
Oh, I think that's right.
And they lost.
Yeah.
And ultimately they didn't listen to working class people, and they lost. And I keep saying this, and I think, you know, hopefully the Labour Party will get this, you know, you've got to listen to working people. You've got to listen to actually what are their concerns. And we know that actually there's a whole lot of people that have concerns about immigration, and it's nothing to, it's not a race vow. It's, you know, it's a concern about a whole lot of things. And so I think they do take it seriously, but I think it's not straightforward. And my question would be, you know, actually what are the answers here? Because it's been a big issue, which actually neither the Conservatives, and we've only just been in for a few months, but like, I don't think the answers are easy. I don't think it's like rocket science. Does that make sense? I think it's great we've arrested this like top smuggling guy, but obviously, and Keir Starmer has said it himself, that is not going to be the full answer. That's a small thing.
So I wonder where we're going with this. Let's see Kemi Badenoch in the House of Commons a couple of years ago.
As a first-generation immigrant, can I welcome the Home Secretary's statement, which I feel this immigration white paper is a move from the 20th century to a much better future immigration system. In particular, I'd like to thank the Home Secretary for removing the annual limits on work visas and also on international students, both of which I lobbied for on behalf of the Wellcome Sanger Institute and Anglia Ruskin University, which serve my constituency. Could he elaborate on how removing the work visa cap in particular will give business certainty?
Now, they may have changed that policy now, but doesn't it tell us, Mike, that actually there's no real difference between the Conservatives and Labour on legal immigration?
You know, it's like watching 2 bald men fighting over a comb. As you say, there are very few differences between them. They don't believe in capping any visa whatsoever. They don't have a net migration target. They both suck up to vested interests. You know, the rot set in when Sajid Javid was in the cabinet and he had that notorious white paper. The whole consultation process was a complete farce. They consulted mostly pro-immigration interest groups and lobbyists. So there's very little difference between them. I mean, the Labour Party talks a bit more about upskilling and reskilling the workforce. The Conservatives are quite stern on dependence. But really, you know, you've got to cap immigration. You need a target, and you need to withdraw the loopholes from the immigration system.
That's why we wanted an annual cap.
Is Mike right?
That was our policy. The election, we said we would have an annual cap, and we would set an annual cap based on the needs of the economy and our public and that's got to be the responsible approach to
You've just jogged my memory. 2010, net migration tens of thousands a year. 2015, net migration tens of thousands a year. 2017, net migration, tens of thousands a year. Why would anyone believe anything the Conservative Party now says?
Well, I think in the post-Brexit world that, you know, again, I make the point, you and I pressed for this, we worked hard to deliver that result, gives us the freedom to be able to decide our destiny on this. That's why having an annual
and your
cap.
party chose mass migration.
Well, we've pulled the levers to bring the numbers down, and I think we would have continued on that trajectory. When I announced, and you know, we were doing the work around the.
There's a big difference.
We said we would go further. We would look to go further, and that's right.
All the big numbers that came from Ukraine and elsewhere can explain partially why the 2022 figures are as big as they are. I get that. But the 2023 figures are not explained by that. This number is 750,000.
Those OECD numbers are interesting in the sense that it talks about, in the articles around it, that the largest composite part of the numbers is those health and care visa dependents. You know, James Cleverly and I banned social care workers from being able to bring
So
those
the numbers were...
and so that should organically...
So we'll be down to just... So this year, just 500,000?
But look, we should be going further. This was a package that brings the numbers down by 300,000.
We kept voting for you on tens of thousands. This issue, Susie, did the Conservative Party enormous harm. They seem to have broken their promises in 4 consecutive general elections. Tom may not like to hear that, but it is true. That's how people feel. But the same is going to happen to you guys, to your guys. I mean, it's pretty clear to me, from what I can see of this Parliament so far, that Labour don't think this, that Westminster Labour don't think this really matters.
I don't think that's true because, I think Keir Starmer is actually, you know, more, what's the word? I mean, look, first of all, the way he got rid of Jeremy Corbyn, I think actually he knows how to win, he knows how to listen, he knows how to make stuff happen. OK, how quickly he changed our party around. He may not be talking about this all the time, but I think he knows you're not going to win. We're not going to win in 4 years' time if we don't begin to properly get a hold of this. And also, I think it is the right thing to do. I mean, we're not talking about illegal, but people coming over the channel and drowning, is not a good thing.
The numbers are going up.
But with this, it's very interesting, as you keep saying, the health workers, the social care workers. This is because we do have gaps, you know, in our workforce, and we've got to upskill people so we don't have those gaps. But also at the same time, I agree with you. I don't think we should have, you know, it should be as freely able to come to this country because you're a dependent, etc. So,
no. Well, yeah. One thing for certain, this debate is far from over. It will go on. Mike, thank you for coming in. Now, with my panel in a moment, I'm going to discuss the Trump cabinet appointments, but more broadly, the powers of patronage that an American president has. And in particular, what is Vivek Ramaswamy, who's appeared on this programme a few times, and Elon Musk going to do with the new Doge department? And do we need one of them here?
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Well, let's speak now to Sales Director at Savills for Quinta Properties, Raquel Santos, who is live for us in Portugal. Raquel, good to see you this morning. Why are all these celebrities flocking to Portugal all of a sudden?
Yeah, I guess it's just because of basically the great lifestyle that we have, security, you know. Portugal has kind of been a hidden, tucked away gem for quite a while that people didn't realize existed. And with the international flights that, you know, with the American flights coming in, it's kind of been put back on the map as a country that's worth visiting and worth investing in due to the secure investments that we offer in real estate.
Raquel, is it anything to do with tax rates? Because I think capital gains tax is, I think if it's over a certain amount, you pay half of your rate, which is 28%. Capital gains on shares and cryptocurrencies is 0. Is it anything to do with that? Because over here in the UK, big storm at the moment about millionaires apparently leaving in exodus because of the mooted increases in taxes in just a few weeks.
Yes, so obviously the alterations that are happening with the UK in terms of the tax that's being implemented on the capital gains, as you mentioned, we've definitely noticed has become a big drive, mostly on the vendor side as well, who are looking to sell because they don't want to be hit, you know, with these higher capital gains, which is close to coming into effect.
Raquel, have you noticed then millionaires, high net worth people from the UK getting in touch with you looking to relocate?
Definitely. It's for multiple reasons, obviously, the changes that are due to come into place, obviously, and Portugal just seems to be a safe option always when things do kind of change. People opt to come into Portugal because we're quite steady, we're quite stable.
GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Weekdays on GB News. Wake up to breakfast every day from 6 a.m. Followed by Britain's newsroom at 9:30. At noon, it's Good Afternoon Britain. Followed by Martin Daubney from 3 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Well, I asked you, does this mass migration ever end? Karen says the high numbers will never end while we have the pull factor of a ridiculously large welfare state, which has been out of control for a long time now and not working as Lord Beveridge had intended. Funny, you know, even the high priest of free markets, Milton Friedman, said you cannot have mass migration, you cannot have loose borders, all the while you have a social security system. And by some estimates, some are suggesting that tens of thousands a month that come into this country effectively go straight on benefits. Those numbers need some checking, but it's a debate that's on. And he says the only way this will stop is if we get a government with a spine to do something about it. Sadly, I can't see this happening until the 2029 general election. I suspect you're right. Now, Donald Trump is in Mar-a-Lago. He has a big situation room. He's beginning to appoint people, and there are one or two big shocks. Marco Rubio becomes his Secretary of State. Not a big surprise. Rubio, been a senator for many, many years. Matt Gaetz becomes the Attorney General, a 42-year-old from Florida. Some would say, what experience has he got? But then it gets really interesting. Pete Hegseth becomes Defense Secretary. Pete, a veteran of Iraq and Afghanistan, but a Fox News presenter. And I could go on. And there's one really big appointment, and his name is Elon Musk, who's never been in elected office at all, and he's taking on a big role at the DOGE department. Yes, it's the Department of Government Efficiency, and he is going to highlight to the world where he thinks American taxpayers' money is being wasted and make suggestions how it could be cut. Susie, this is interesting because I remember Gordon Brown, and Gordon Brown did actually bring in people into ministerial positions who'd never been Labour Party members, who'd never been elected to anything. In some cases, they were put into the House of Lords. I think Digby Jones, former CBI boss, and many other things, was put into the Lords to speak for Labour on business. Is there an argument that what Trump is doing with his cabinet might be a thought here?
I mean, I think there's nothing wrong with bringing in people that have expertise in certain areas and experience in certain areas. I think that's good. You know, I think there's nothing wrong with that, and especially if something that Gordon Brown did. Big fan of Gordon Brown. And, you know, I think when it comes to Donald Trump, I mean, look, I have my concerns about Elon Musk. Do you know what I mean? You know, which, you know, you may not hold, other people may not hold, you know. So, you know, I have some, concerns also about, the way he was involved in the election, like dishing out money and all of that. For me, the biggest thing is actually what happened with Twitter. You know, I was a big Twitter fan, and I used it literally for over a decade. And when he took it on, I just feel like it really became, like today I've just signed up to Blue Sky Blue or something.
Well,
something new.
Well, best of luck with that.
Well, let's see. Well, you don't know.
But see, I disagree with you because until Musk came along, all those social media platforms, all of them were centre-left. They suppressed debate in the November 2020 election. None of them took the Hunter Biden laptop seriously. What Musk has done is bring some balance and give you as a consumer a choice.
I mean, look, this is the way I see it. The way I see it is this. My experience of Twitter was that suddenly, like, the algorithms all went off, strange things were coming up in my feed, never seeing, like, people that maybe Labour Party people or even my friends, and I was just like, well, actually, why do I want to be on this? And then far more harassment, far more abuse. Do you know what I mean? I'm just like, why don't I want to be,
well, I mean, that's the point about the free speech platform, is that a lot of things will get said on there that do cause offence.
It takes away free speech.
Do cause offence, you know. Tom, I guess the problem here is, you know, I mentioned you know, the case where the odd minister got put in the House of Lords. But if you do appoint people to executive function positions and Parliament can't hold them to account, that's kind of the problem, isn't it?
I think that is a challenge, and I think the way that our system works is one where you do have an executive that's drawn from Parliament, and there is that day-to-day scrutiny. And actually, when you talk to people in the US, they often say to you that they wish that they had similar arrangements to us in that regard.
But they use committees for this, don't they?
They do.
And their committees are more powerful than ours. So could that be a compromise way through?
I think they've, you know, got massive teeth in the US committees to summon witnesses, to hear that testimony.
Legally summon them.
Quite right. And, you know, actually, there is something to be said for that. It's a very different system. But look, Trump won a massive mandate. On every yardstick, it's impossible to say that people in the US didn't vote for something different. I think that there'll be a lot of people in the United States who think that it is worth having a drive around efficiency to look at these challenges. I don't think for a minute that government has all the answers to every challenge on this side of the pond as well as in the US. So I think people should give this a chance. And interestingly, some of the people who perhaps be sneering about this today on the left of British politics are the very same people who don't have a lot to say when it comes to the fact that Keir Starmer's appointed various people to civil service roles and other roles within his administration.
I mean, true, but it's different. True, but the point is this. In 2016, Donald Trump's team did not think he was going to win. You know, a few weeks later, he arrives in the White House, I think almost unaware that the US president can appoint 3,000 people. British Prime Minister can appoint 100. 3,000 people. They've been working on this for 18 months to get people in the right positions. And what Trump wants around him are loyal people, because many of those that came in 2017 and onwards, frankly, were never really on his side. That's what he's doing. But this idea of a Department of Government Efficiency, now, in theory, you know, we have this Office for Value for Money, but the idea that you get an entrepreneur in, you know, who knows that every buck counts, that will slash departments where he thinks people are unnecessary. We need a Musk, don't we?
I mean, look, I'm never going to say we need a Musk because I think as a country we're better off without a Musk. But do you know what we do need? It's really interesting because this whole thing of, like, you know, what they're great on is entrepreneurs. What they're great on is they back their entrepreneurs. The people that have wealth in America take risks with their wealth and back the next generation. And that's what we've got to do as a country. We've got Elon Musks. We've got Elon Musk all around London.
Should we bring them into government?
Well, forget Elon Musk. I don't want to use him as a weapon, but we should bring... I've got no problem. I think people that have expertise, people with lived experience. I am sick and tired of people becoming MPs that are just, I was this in Westminster, I was this in Westminster. I mean, this is not good for us. We want people that have lived experience.
If you work in the public sector all your life, the bottom line never, ever features in your daily life. If you run a business, however big or small, every morning you're looking at the profit and loss sheet for the day before, or the mark-to-market valuation, or whatever it is. I think this is real. I mean, I hope this works. I hope this provides a blueprint for us, because, Tom, and you've been closer to this than me, everybody I know that's worked in big government departments says that the procurement procedures, the waste of taxpayers' money is off the scale.
And I think that's, you know, one of the reasons why I've not been massively impressed by some of the walking back of the non-executive directors in departments. I think having some of that scrutiny of your processes, the way you go about things, looking at challenges in a different way is actually very healthy and very refreshing, and holding a mirror up to the way that departments work can only be a good thing. This is obviously a magnitude way beyond that in terms of disappointment, as you say. But there is something in this, and I do wish it well, because quite clearly, when you look at some of the opportunities around technology and AI, Rishi understood this when he was Prime Minister. Actually, there was quite a good dialogue, I think, with Elon Musk at that time. But you look at challenges like the border, they're precisely right for looking at technological solutions, automation, etc. I think he'll get that in a way that perhaps some wouldn't.
He's going to drain the swamp. You know, he said it back in 2016. He found it too difficult. This is his attempt to drain the swamp. Is Whitehall a swamp?
No, I don't think so. But I think there's always things we can do better. And, you know, when there's an opportunity to shake things up, you should do that. And,
all right, well,
maybe there's a blueprint emerging here.
Well, I'm hoping so. I'm looking forward to it. In a moment, it is, without doubt, the single most important private members' bill that has come before Parliament for, I'm going to say, decades. It is the Assisted Dying Bill. It'll come before the House of Commons on Friday, the 19th of November. There are passionate arguments on both sides. To date, I've not said much about it. In a minute, I will.
Evening. Time for your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News, where we keep clear skies tonight. Expect it to turn a little frosty with some fog patches. There will be some rain arriving tomorrow across the northwest, but a fine day across much of the south thanks to this area of high pressure. Changes are on the way as we go into the weekend. But for Friday, that high pressure keeping things largely dry. As I said, through the night where we've got some clear skies across the south, and we could see a touch of frost in rural spots, and we could also see some fog patches forming parts of northeast Scotland, also turning a little chilly. Elsewhere, generally a bit too much cloud, providing some drizzle in parts of western Scotland and the odd spot of drizzle across the south of England this evening, but that generally clearing away. Where we keep the cloud, temperatures could hold up in double figures, but where we've got the clear skies, we could certainly in rural spots across the south see some pockets of frost, and it's likely to be some fog patches around as well, which will linger through the morning rush hour. So just something to be aware of. Further north, not so foggy, but quite grey for Northern Ireland, much of southern Scotland, a bit of rain and drizzle here and there, some of that in western Scotland too. But to the east, generally here, a fine bright start. Any fog patches across eastern Scotland should clear pretty sharply. As we go through the day, we're not going to see huge changes. The fog will take a while to clear, but much of the South Midlands, South Wales, southern England, dry, fine, sunny spells. Generally cloudier further north, a bit of drizzle here and there, and then we'll see some wetter weather coming into the far northwest later. Temperature-wise, double digits, a touch cooler than today in the south, but with more sunshine. Light winds. It should feel quite pleasant. We'll see a spell of wet and windy weather swing south then on Friday night, bringing some outbreaks of rain over northern England into Wales and the Midlands later on Saturday. To the north of that, turning blustery with some showers. Yes, that is a bit of snow in the hills there. Much of the south still largely dry and mild at this stage on Saturday. But notice further north temperatures struggling to get into double figures.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date. Or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Isabel Webster. Thanks for joining us on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Now, when I get things wrong, I will tell you. I told you the debate and vote would be on the 19th of November. I'm wrong. It's on the 29th of November. These are the risks of doing live television with no autocue whatsoever. It doesn't happen very often, though, does it? Now, Kim Ledbetter is the Labour Member of Parliament for Spen Valley. She is the one whose private member's bill will be debated and voted on that day. Let us hear the arguments that she's putting forward for this legislation.
If you're saying it's fine that we've got people taking their own lives, being forced to go to other countries, having horrible deaths despite good palliative care, then you vote against the bill, you abstain. But that's not right. And I would say to anybody, speak to those people, speak to those organisations who do this work, and you will see very clearly that the law as it stands is not fit for purpose.
Well, you can't argue that that is not a very passionate way of putting it. And I bet there's not a single one of you watching or listening now that doesn't know a friend or relative who perhaps had motor neuron disease or whatever it may have been and died in pretty miserable circumstances. The worry for opponents of the bill is however much we're given safeguards, does that scope extend? Does it perhaps even go to the European Court of Human Rights in Strasbourg? Do we finish up like the Netherlands, which is bringing in law now to say healthy people over 75 can opt to be euthanized? Do we finish up like some parts of America, where anorexia is considered to be a condition through which you can end your own life? I think, to be fair to Kim Ledbetter, she has actually put some things in place that will give reassurance, but are they enough? I'm joined now by Liberal Democrat MP for Edinburgh West, Christine Jardine. Christine, this is going to be one of the most important and emotional days in Parliament that you or I are ever going to see in our political careers. I know you've spent some time thinking about this, talking about this. Just tell our audience how you feel about the whole thing.
I feel the law as it stands at the moment does not offer either sufficient compassion or sufficient protection for terminally ill, mentally capable adults who are facing a potentially painful end of life and who want to be given the option to have control over whether or not they choose to end their lives when palliative care, which in this country is excellent, but unfortunately cannot always work for everyone. And they want that reassurance, which in many countries where they have a bill of the sort that, or an act of the sort that Kim is suggesting, where it is only terminally ill, competent adults who can make that choice. Once they've got the opportunity, it's a strange word to use, I know, but once they have gone through the protocols and they have the permissions, they don't always take it. In fact, the majority don't, because what they want is the reassurance that if it gets too much, then they can take that option. And I think that the law as it stands in this country is not sufficient. The status quo isn't working. People aren't happy with it. Every opinion poll that's been done in this country says people want the law changed. A very narrow change, terminal illness only. People want that. And it's not just a majority of people. There was a recent opinion poll which suggested that the majority in every constituency in the country individually want to see a change in the law. They want to see assisted dying. But importantly, the majority seem to want, and a lot of disabled charities say that they support this as well, terminally ill adults with a diagnosis. And what Kim is suggesting in this bill is that it would only be available to those over 18 with a terminal diagnosis of 6 months who had 2 independent doctors confirm the situation, that they were competent, they'd made the decision themselves, and then it would be ruled on by a High Court judge. Importantly, there would also be 2 cooling off periods of 7 days and 14 days so that they could change their minds, and they would then, it would be up to them whether and when they took that decision.
All right. No, you make the case for voting for, and you make it very passionately. Christine, I thank you for coming on and sharing that with us. Tom, you're not in the Commons anymore. You would have faced this, and it is quite rightly an issue of conscience, not a party whip thing, and that's quite right. I wish more of our politics actually was on the conscience of individual members of Parliament. Would be a good thing, I think. Christine makes the case very clearly that it's only for the terminally ill, that are of sound mind. My worry is that it starts off this way in Canada. It starts off this way in the Netherlands. It starts off this way in the state of Oregon. And then within a few years, it expands.
Well, it was quite interesting. I was watching a few days ago a documentary with Liz Carr, the actress, who was talking about the situation in Canada and the enormous scope creep that you'd seen in relation to these measures, which went far beyond terminal illness, which was first envisaged when those measures were introduced, and in some respects was really very troubling and horrifying, actually. And I voted against this when I was in the Commons when we last debated this, and I think I would probably vote the same way again were I still in Parliament, because I do have some real concerns about the safeguards. I do worry about that slippery slope.
To be fair to Ledbetter, what she's written in the legislation is it has to go to a judge. I mean, the legislation's well written if it was to stay exactly as it is.
And I also think, you know, very relevant to that is the points that the Health Secretary's made today, the impacts and the choices that this will present to the NHS. I think Parliament needs to be in full possession of the facts. I think you need to see the impact assessments so that you can really understand what this will mean on other parts of the NHS.
Tough to know.
And also,
tough to know.
Well,
is the real
very
truth.
difficult because a lot of this is unquantifiable.
Yeah, I know.
But also those clinical questions that raises for staff and the quandary that puts them in, I struggle with.
I'm voting against, Tom. You know, I'm perfectly clear about that, unless somebody could absolutely convince me that those safeguards would not be changed. And my worry is the European Court. That someone goes to the European Court to say, look, I'm terminally ill, but they didn't allow me to take this option because my IQ was below a certain level or I had mental decline. This is my concern. Susie, what do you think about this issue? And if you were in Parliament, how would you be feeling today about this?
I think it's you'd be, kind of not human, as it were, to not find this a difficult issue, because you have full compassion for where, some people are coming from this. And, when you hear some of the stories, at the same time, I agree with what you're saying. I think for me, it's the slippery slope with it. And I know if I was an MP, I would be voting against it. And I very much agree with where streeting. I was just reading about what Ed Davey has written about it in the Times. I just agree with where he's at on it. And I just think that we've all seen people in that place where, most people have seen people in that place when they're almost, dying. And I just think it's that slippery slope. It's that thing of you don't know what pressure people would feel.
Well, from families, from inheritance. No, I mean, look, Christy made the point that the majority in every constituency in Britain, on the face of it, agree with this, but that's because they haven't heard the debate and heard what potential downsides might be. And I have to say, I think it's wrong that something as big as this and important as this is only going to have one day's debate in Parliament. I believe it needs an awful lot more. Moving on, the What the Farage moment is Labour in Wales. They're pledged to make Labour anti-racist by 2030. Yes, they have an anti-racist Wales action plan. And some of the suggestions coming in from their contributors are that they're very worried that allotments are dominated by middle-aged white women. And there is now an anti-racist plan for walkers. Apparently dogs may now be banned in certain parts of the Welsh countryside because some immigrant communities don't like dogs. I mean, come on, for goodness sakes, Susie. Labour have been in power for 25 years in Wales. This stuff is just bats, isn't it?
I mean, I'm going to be honest with you, I've not heard anything about the story, and it just sounds completely odd and baffling to me. I almost have no comment.
All right, fair enough. Well, let's move on. Let's move on to a story. We're about to see a mum of a schoolgirl, and the girl went to school wearing her poppy. Now, I have to tell you, this is the first year ever that I've worn a metal pin, because the new poppies are utterly useless. They don't stay on. You can't pin them on. What's happened to the plastic stem? But no, we've all gone green. The same happened to this young girl going to her school. She was wearing a poppy pin. Watch this.
I got a message from my daughter. Just got detention for wearing the pin. Now, the pin in question is a poppy pin. So the school has given her a detention for wearing a poppy pin. Think about that. I am hopefully, don't hold out much hope, we'll be getting a meeting with the head teacher. If not, the whole of I've already spoken to people in the British Legion. They're all ready to make a stand.
Am I right, Tom, that this year's poppies were just awful?
I think, I prefer that they certainly go much more easily through the buttonholes with those plastic stems that they use. Exactly. And so much more practical. But this is horrifying. I mean, this is awful. I mean, if I was the Minister in the Department for Education, I'd be asking for the school to come and see me because, actually, this young person should be applauded for taking the steps to commemorate this really important moment.
Yeah, I mean, it is very odd, isn't it? We had this discussion, like, Remembrance Day is just so important. There's some things that we do, and it's just like, who cares? Remembrance Day is not one of them. Loads of people gave their lives that we might be free. All of us have got people in our families that fought in World War I and World War II. And I just think it's so important, particularly that we pass it on to young people, and there is a problem because that isn't happening. And then you've got this kid who obviously, has gone and worn her poppy. I mean, hopefully this is just a really kind of one-off, very odd thing. And maybe the head teacher's gone and apologised to the mum.
I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll keep following this story and see where it goes. In a moment, Civil Service Union demanding the civil servants work a 4-day week because that's critical for a happy life. Have we lost our marbles? All of that in a second.
Martin Daubney, weekdays from 3 p.m.
After the Hollywood ending that Wrexham Football Club have got, can Chorley FC benefit from a bit of the old celebrity magic dust?
I can't see why not. The guys have been down a few times now, and when they do come down, obviously they're bringing that with them. A little town like Chorley doesn't see much of the charts and big stars, so it's really nice to see them, and we always welcome them when they do come down.
And Mark, give us a flavour of the level of football. I understand you're in the National League North, right? That's 6 rungs down from the top flight? I mean, you're only just down the road from Manchester City, right? But, I mean, give us a flavour of the two different worlds between your club and Man City.
Our players are all part-timers. So we've got kind of fitness coaches, we've got teachers, we've got all kinds of players who have full-time jobs alongside playing. Our average crowd is probably a tenth of what you get at Man City, probably even less than that. We get about 1,500 on a home game. The thing is, we know where we are and we understand where we are, and we are a real community club. Tonight, I'm ready now. I'm off to Marine, so off over to Merseyside. Playing the likes of Liverpool and Everton over on Merseyside would be kind of a dream come true. But we know where we are. We would just love to get to the Football League. So teams like Salford, Stockport County were in our division a couple of years ago, all flying now in the Football League. We just want to do the same. We sat down with the board last year and they told us the vision for the future, and that vision most definitely is that we want to be a Football League club. When we went to the Premier League, I know the boys have been saying that they 30 years we'll be in the Premier League and winning it. Well, let's hope we are, and let's hope I'm still around to see that.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mark Dolan tonight is your weekend dose of news, debate and entertainment. This sounds like a wild conspiracy theory. Don't miss My Big Opinion. Mark meets at My Take at 10. Democracy is a funny old thing. And we don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it. Let's go and get another glass of that bubbly. You've earned it. That's Mark Dolan tonight, Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 11, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Now, the PCS union working at the Department for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs are demanding that they only work a 4-day week, but they have the same levels of pay because this is essential to a happy and healthy life. Well, I'd like to do a 1-day week and have no reduction in pay. And the argument that people are more productive when they work at home is utter rubbish. People are productive when they're together working in teams. People learn more, especially young people, from older people. Jacob, you had to confront this, didn't you?
Yes, it's also absolute nonsense that it doesn't make you happier if you work less. Work for most people, particularly people in office jobs, is very enjoyable. It's interesting, it's stimulating. In the civil service, if you don't find your job rewarding, there's something wrong with you. It's really exciting working, particularly at the centre of government. And so I think it's very odd that they should say that it makes for a happier life. I don't believe it. And productivity in the public sector has collapsed as they've worked from home more.
That's what I mean, Susie. After the budget debate, I said in the House of Commons, what's wrong with hard work? What's wrong with success? Why do we keep talking about work-life balance? Of course, I'm not advocating slave driving or putting kids up chimneys, but, I mean, we just can't afford to do this, can we?
Yeah, and I also just think, it's not really fair, is it, for teachers or, for other people that wouldn't be able to do that? Why do they suddenly get this option of working, a 4-day week and being paid for 5 days when actually loads of other people work really, really hard?
Nurses.
Yeah, well, exactly, and wouldn't be able to do that. And I just think, unfortunately, look, this is just not where we're at. Maybe in 5, 6, 7, 10 years' time, if the economy's looking different or something's looking different. But, I mean, really, where we're at the moment, I don't think this isn't a top debate to be having. I think it's OK to talk about well-being, and, having, work-life balance is fine, but that doesn't mean not working a whole full day at work. And if you want to do that, go part-time.
What do you reckon, Tom? What do you reckon Elon Musk would make of this?
I'm not sure that's nice, would you, if we're honest. But look, Jacob and I well remember some of the debates and conversations that we had in government around this. And I remember, for example, as a Home Office Minister, doing some of these town hall events with staff, and not about a 4-day week, but often we would be asked as ministers about home working. And I think there's a place for that, but it's about balance. And I used to say that I wanted to spend time with my officials. I wanted more senior members of staff to mentor young, new and up-and-coming. There's something about that creativity. You need people in the office, and government is 24/7 business.
I think flexible working from home. Now, if you're a computer programmer, you might actually be more productive at home. Although my experience of working from home is there's a knock on the door, it's a parcel, the dog's been sick, or whatever it might be. I find I'm not as productive. But I think on young people, this is really important. Yeah. Young people need to work physically with other people to learn and get on. It looks like Labour might give in to this.
No, I don't think so. Why do you think that? I mean, what I've heard is Johnny Van Ord has said you're not going to save that amount of money which they're claiming they're going to save. Emma was very, very strong on it, very blunt. And Keir Starmer has said this is not our policy. So I don't think anyone's going to be winning on this. Look, I think, as I say, if people want to work less days, then go down to part-time. I think it's fine when it comes to people like firemen, that do their 4 days on. And there's good arguments for that. But I think where we're at the moment, and again, when you're asking people to be making savings, when you're cutting certain things because of where we're at, I don't think you can be advocating for this. So, yeah.
One of the things that worries me a bit about this is there does seem to be some mixed messages from government, because I heard, for example, that the Housing Secretary said that a local authority in Cambridgeshire can have a 4-day week.
That's right.
Why are you treating the civil service any differently? I think they've got to be very clear.
Well, that's the point
and Emma Reynolds has really shut this down. I welcome that. I think she's right.
For now.
But also I worry, and you'll get this, that there seems to be this growing gulf between the public sector and the private sector. And I think when you consider some of the announcements around national insurance, etc., this just plays into that. And it's not right, particularly at a time, for example, when there's talk of council tax increases, to be saying that taxpayers in that part of the country would be paying for a 4-day week. It doesn't hang together right.
Let alone civil service pensions compared to the pensions in the private sector, which, from what I can make out, Jacob, many people in the private sector are struggling to save much at all for their pension.
Yes, that's absolutely right. And civil servants get guaranteed pensions that aren't funded, so they're guaranteed by future taxpayers. There are some funded pensions, but the majority of them are not funded. And now we're seeing this great intervention in pension funds, which I think one should treat with great suspicion. When the government wants to direct where pension funds go, you should wonder what on earth they're up to.
Come on. I mean, let's be fair. Rachel Reeves clearly is a brilliant fund manager.
Oh, yes, I wouldn't say that. and I would also say, in my experience of investment management, that sometimes the fund managers who refuse to take more money are the best fund managers, because if you're investing in smaller companies and particular special opportunities, if you manage too much money, you can't find the opportunities.
No, what she's trying to do, Susie, is get more money invested in the British economy.
Yeah, I mean, look...
Which I support. Which, on principle, I support, but not...
Yeah, look, we have a problem in this country. I mean, I was saying it before, it's slightly different, but I was just saying I've just spent time in America, and I was, in awe, but also frustrated by the fact that they don't have wealth hoarding. Wealthy people there invest, and they invest in start-ups, and then you get the, not just Teslas to one side, but Netflix and Uber and all these amazing things in this small little geographical area. It's not that they're brighter or got better universities. It's because they're wealthy people invest and they take risks, the culture. And my question is, how does the government create that culture here? But also, how do we challenge wealthy people and say, have pride in this nation, have pride in the next generation? What's your legacy going to be? Not just that you hoarded wealth.
I'd love that to happen. I'm not sure she got it right. Quick thought, we haven't spoken since the US presidential election.
Yes.
Were you surprised by Trump's win?
I wasn't surprised by Trump's win. I wasn't. I think, I was frustrated because I think there's a parallel going on in this country, though the Labour Party did win. And the big thing is you've got to listen to working class people.
Absolutely.
They were not listening to it. They were going after side issues. When a mum can't pay her food shop, she does not care about certain things.
Absolutely.
And I don't understand where those issues have got so high up the agenda.
No, you're right. Susie, you're absolutely right. They missed the boat on that.
They missed the boat.
Now, it's an anniversary today. It's 1 year ago that I announced I was going into the jungle I'm a celebrity contestant, and I have to say I was in there for 23 nights, 24 days. It was one hell of a long time. Actually, truth is, I really rather enjoyed most of it. No mobile phones, no salt, no sugar, no alcohol. A complete detox in absolutely every way. And they paid me well, so what's not to like? And, of course, the new lot will be going in. The television first programme will be on Sunday evening. It is still a massively watched programme. It seems that Colleen Rooney is going to be the really big name going in this year. But no regrets from me. I'm still not a great fan of snakes. But the one thing about that programme is you just have to get on and grin and bear it. 1 or 2 clips on the screen now, things I'd rather not be, especially reminded of. It was pretty ghastly. But, hey, It's a way of testing each other. Jacob, I'm sure you won't be going on.
No, I like my creature comforts too much, and I didn't notice any linen sheets whilst you were there. I find it very difficult not to have those.
In a word, your show tonight...
We're going to go on Alison Pearson again, and this threat to free speech, which is getting worse and worse, and these invented non-crimes, and the terrible waste of police time. Why aren't they dealing with real crime?
Well, I think that's the issue, and I think the sort of two-tier debate that's going on around policing, justice, etc., isn't going away anytime soon. I'm back with you next Tuesday evening. First, though, before State of the Nation, let's have a look at the weather.
Even though we'll see a cloudy start, it'll be a bright outlook for the rest of the day. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Evening, time for your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News, where we keep clear skies tonight. Expect it to turn a little frosty with some fog patches. There will be some rain arriving tomorrow across the northwest, but a fine day across much of the south thanks to this area of high pressure. Changes are on the way as we go into the weekend. But for Friday, that high pressure keeping things largely dry. As I said, through the night where we've got some clear skies across the south, and we could see a touch of frost in rural spots, and we could also see some fog patches forming parts of northeast Scotland, also turning a little chilly. Elsewhere, generally a bit too much cloud, providing some drizzle in parts of western Scotland and the odd spot of drizzle across the south of England this evening, but that generally clearing away. Where we keep the cloud, temperatures could hold up in double figures, but where we've got the clear skies, we could certainly in rural spots across the south see some pockets of frost, and it's likely to be some fog patches around as well, which will linger through the morning rush hour. So just something to be aware of. Further north, not so foggy, but quite grey for Northern Ireland, much of southern Scotland, a bit of rain and drizzle here and there, some of that in western Scotland too. But to the east, generally here, a fine bright start. Any fog patches across eastern Scotland should clear pretty sharply. As we go through the day, we're not going to see huge changes. The fog will take a while to clear, but much of the South Midlands, South Wales, southern England, dry, fine, sunny spells. Generally cloudier further north, a bit of drizzle here and there, and then we'll see some wetter weather coming into the far northwest later. Temperature-wise, double digits, a touch cooler than today in the south, but with more sunshine. Light winds. It should feel quite pleasant. We'll see a spell of wet and windy weather swing south then on Friday night, bringing some outbreaks of rain over northern England into Wales and the Midlands later on Saturday. To the north of that, turning blustery with some showers. Yes, that is a bit of snow in the hills there. Much of the south still largely dry and mild at this stage on Saturday, but notice further north temperatures struggling to get into double figures.
We'll see a cold snap, which will quickly develop into a warm front. Boxed Boiler Repairs, sponsors of weather on GB News.
There's only 2 weeks remaining to win Christmas on Us this year. There's £20,025 in tax-free cash. There's £5,000 to spend on gifts for all the family. There's £500 to spend in your favourite supermarket. And a festively themed GB News goodie bag. We'll get it all to you in time for the big day. For another chance to win, call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message.